Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Career Conversations with grads working in economics and finance. My name is Liz Cook, and I'm the Employer and Alumni Liaison at the Career Center. At the end of the panel over here, we have David Jeffries, who is a senior economist with Luskin, Sheff and Associates, and he is an alumnus. He did his MA in economics here. And next to David, we have Orlando Lopez, who is a financial planner with TD Wealth. Gary will be here soon, I'm sure, and I'll introduce him when he arrives. And we've got Frederick Zhu, who's co-founder and CEO of Invest, and he's also an alumnus. He did his MA in economics in 2012. And at the end of the panel, we have Ali Maqsood, who's senior manager at Scotiabank, and he is an alumnus as well, a BA in business economics.
As Liz said, I'm a senior economist at Luskin, Sheff and Associates, so it's a wealth management firm, and my role is really just strategic oversight. So the way generally investment firms work is you have the analysts who are building up the bottom-up perspective, like they're looking for individual companies to invest in. They'll take their screening metrics and they'll sort of pick company on a company level. My job is actually to provide the top-down perspective. So starting on a macro level, looking at regional economies, so going across geographies and across industrial sectors, and then sort of handing off there. So highlighting areas where we see potential growth opportunities. So, focusing on whether it be, let's say, consumer discretionary in the U.S., at which point we sort of give that overview. Here's the reasons why we like this area versus other areas, and then sort of work with the portfolio managers then to sort of guide them in the process. So here's the areas we look to see growth. We identify sort of the large macro trends rather than the micro trends in and amongst companies. So again, it's just integrate. It's a lot of translating what the daily economic data is saying, what the financial market data is saying, and translating that into sort of an investable strategy. And that's across asset classes, so stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate in some portions, as well as geographies. So, whether or not you like Canada, US, Mexico, you like emerging markets, you like Europe, you like Japan, Asia, trying to figure out how to best allocate our clients' funds.
My role at TD in financial planning, what I do is I translate what he does for individual clients in the sense that I work day to day with families or individuals in structuring their portfolio towards their goals. So that goal might include retirement planning, sending their children to university, and trying to determine what sort of investments they should be looking towards, depending on how much risk they're comfortable with, how close they are to their goal. Outside of the investment piece, looking at estate planning, tax advice. So I really function more in a role where I try to educate and empower clients, keeping them focused on the important things around their finances. The other hat that I wear is that I also teach finance at York. So I do that one night a week. I started out last year. So it's an undergrad course at Atkinson.
I kind of took a wrong turn when it comes to finance economics, so I ended up in entrepreneurship. A lot of people don't think there is a connection between entrepreneurship and finance, which is wrong, by the way. Just before I start, I just want to shamelessly market my company just a little bit, so give you a heads up of what Invest does and what I do. So Invest is a stock recommendation platform. We crowdsource all these data from different sources and keep track of it. So the core of Invest is really to display those data in a very innovative way and allow people to kind of interpret who is really good at stock picking and who's not. So that's kind of the stuff that Invest does. So my role in Invest is CEO, and I'm also one of the co-founder. So I managed to procrastinate until last night, so I started thinking about what exactly do I do at Invest? So I started making a list. So the list got really long, and there's no way I'm gonna, repeat that list back. So I started making a list on what I don't do. So and by the way, this is serious. I don't do accounting and I don't do taxes. I do everything else. So pretty much down from hiring, strategic planning, management. If worker productivity is not high, I make sure I find out what the problem is. If the product doesn't sell, I make sure I find out what the problem is.
I work for the Scotiabank. I work with the finance controller group of the international banking. Probably some of you know that the Scotia Bank has a diverse operations internationally, predominantly in South America and the Caribbean, with a small operation, not small, a decent operation in Thailand and China. And my role is simply financial analysis, financial report building and maintenance, analyzing of capital positions, and a complex box called fund transfer pricing, transferring from outside Canada back into Canada, or asking the country to return some of what they have on the balance sheet sits there for risk exposure. So one of the complexity we have is the diversity of the operations in different countries, the diversity of foreign exchange, the fluctuation of foreign exchange. So I'm always asked to analyze the FX impact on 5-6 operations, or if I use this foreign exchange here or that foreign exchange scenario there, what will happen, how the P&L will look like, or if we do the fund transfer pricing this way or that way, how it will look like, in addition to the showing financial positions, P&L reports, profit and loss reports by geographical location, and a consolidated view, which is top of the house of the international banking. I'm a trained engineer. I went to engineering school, have a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and the reason I went there because I loved cars. And I got the job of my dream, landed to work for General Motors overseas. 4 years later, 4.5 years later, I came to Canada, had the same exact job with Mazda, the Canadian operations of Mazda Motor Corporation in Japan. I was their technical trainer, and then I wanted to move. They decided to move me to audit, and I had no idea about operational compliance audit. And I became one day, the head of audit for the company. At the same time, I enrolled here at York, did my BA. I had no idea about business or accounting or economics at all. I can do any mathematical modeling. I got also my Certified Internal Auditor designation. A few years later, I spent about 10 years with Mazda. I moved to Honda Finance, doing a completely different job from what I was doing. The job description, when I read it, I had to Google 3 words because I had no idea what did these mean. I was doing interest rate modeling, and I was doing consumer credit risk. In a small company, you are a jack of all trades. So it was a great, great, great experience. I left Honda, and I landed a job with automotive finance at the bank, Scotia Bank, international operations. A couple of months later, they told me, Ali, you have good modeling skill. Why don't you move to performance management, which is portfolio analysis for the Scotia Bank, which is not like equity or debt. It's mortgage portfolios, credit card portfolios, built forecasting models for these things. So we're split by type of product, term or revolving. And a year later, I got a job with the controller office. I've been there for 3 years almost, yeah. It was fun. And I did my master's in economics and finance from Ryerson, because I can do it part-time at night. And currently I'm doing the CPA, the Canadian CPA.
After I graduated from York, I got into modeling quite a bit. I started modeling when I was in undergrad. So after my professor taught me about free cash flow, the firm, and he always used examples that you should do Walmart on this model. So I thought, why do Walmart? Walmart's the easiest one, right? Also, if you apply a model on a single company, that always come up correct, right? Because you can tweak the model so that the number comes out matches the price of Walmart, and you can say, oh, that proves my model's correct. So instead of just doing Walmart, I did my model on 7,000 stocks. So it came out 3,000 of them are within range of 20% to the actual price. So I built that. I got intense interest in model building. And somehow I ended up in an MBA degree in Japan. I know it's quite far. So, I always wanted to be an analyst, a consultant, whatever the hot words are there in the market. But after I got into Japan, I learned that's my first interaction with entrepreneurship. The first class I learned was, learn how to write a business plan, analyzing why this company going bankrupt, analyzing why Starbucks, under the leadership of those three English teachers didn't take off, but instead under Howard it took off. So I learned quite a bit about that. That got me really interested. So as I just kind of take entrepreneurship as my hobby and learn quite a bit. And I came back to Canada, got my first ever job at a medium-sized company as a COO. Again, don't even know how that happened. I just emailed the CEO, be like, "Hi, I want this job." And she just gave it to me. So afterwards, that company had a little bit of trouble surviving. So I took what I learned back in school and reapplied back to this company, identifying what the problems are, and helping the company surviving this climate essentially. So afterwards, we got VC funding, and I got a meaningful exit. So I left to do my own stuff. So now I'm quite determined in doing entrepreneurship and doing startup. So I'm quite involved with the startup community in U of T. So I got into this event called Your Next Career Network, startup career fair. Then I met Invest guys. By the way, I didn't found Invest. I was hired to invest. So I met Invest guys. They want to do a financial model just like the one I told you guys about. So they hired me on board, and they hired me to be a co-founder. So after getting into Invest, it's a great team. One thing you need to know is if you want to establish a company, you need to have a great team first, not a great idea. So I was quite lucky that I was put on a really good team, and things took off fast. We got into Accelerator, the one named UTest, and we got funding. And afterwards, the CEO has some trouble in China, not criminal troubles, but he has family responsibilities he needs to take care of. That's why he flew back to China. So instead, I took the position of CEO, and again, the first thing I did was changing the company. So before Invest was a stock recommendation platform that keeps track of people's trades. So when you make a buy recommendation on Apple, we keep track of that points, then we sell at different points. And that was really facing a lot of competition at the moment. Not from the Canadian market, but a lot of players in the US market are doing that. One of the reasons that UTest took so long to accept us was essentially that idea wasn't well done enough to be the market leader. So I took over Invest immediately, revamp everything, and now we're kind of like this analytical data company that we're now.
I came to Canada in 2004. Before that, I was born and raised in Jamaica. So I did high school in Jamaica and did a diploma in software engineering, and actually worked in that field. So I used to do computer programming, learned C, C++, Java. And the firm that I worked at, their programming language was Delphi. So I did that for about 2.5 years. While in that role, you learn from each role that you do. So you learned, what I enjoyed in that job, what are the things I didn't really like. And I realized that the time I spent working with the users of the software in terms of testing, I enjoyed that part of my day. So I realized I really like spending time with people, chit-chatting, versus just sort of being behind the PC, for the whole day. So I always did plan to do my degree, and I decided to look towards Canada. I had some family here, so I came to New York in 2004 as an international student, initially with the intention of going into general management, and sort of went to the Career Center, did use your resources. I think there was a tool that was there that sort of said, it was a whole bunch of questions, and based on my interest and the things I like to do, there was a lot of individuals similar to me do these different roles, and they find it fulfilling and they enjoy it. Financial planning was one of them that sort of popped up. So I looked more into it, realized that it checked off a lot of boxes. I'm very entrepreneurial, did some stuff in high school along those lines and at York, which I'll get into. So I like managing my own time, managing my own day. I like helping people, did a lot of volunteer work in high school, at York and after. So I get that fulfillment out of my day because I'm really helping to make a difference in people's lives. And I structured my courses along those lines. So I went more the CFP route versus the CFA route. So when I graduated in 2008, and while I was at York, I actually started to tutor finance and stats. I realized I was good with numbers. So just to kind of help, with the expenses, along with working at Tim Hortons, I started tutoring my own little business. So I'd put posters up on campus, put them in the classrooms, all that good stuff. Started TD 2008, which was in the recession, difficult time to enter finance. So I started, there was a hiring freeze at most institutions at that time. So I got hired part-time as a customer service rep. Bit of a tough pill to swallow. As an international student, we're paying like $15,000 for tuition, and coming out, did well and everything. And it's a job that you just need high school to sort of, do that. But it was where I wanted to be. It was a financial institution. There was, long-term prospects. So in that role as a bank teller, week one, I told the manager I want to be a financial planner. That's my end route. So that's something that's really important, really knowing where you want to get so you can communicate that to people. Did the Canadian Securities course in that role, got promoted to a financial service rep, which is a junior advisor. In that role, I studied for the CFP designation, passed the exam, but didn't have enough experience to actually hold it. So got promoted once more to the senior role, did it for 2 years, and then I was able to hold the designation. And after that 2 years, that's when I then transitioned to the financial planner role, which I've been doing for about 3 years. Now, while at TD, I continued to tutor. I realized I really enjoyed teaching. And I think there might be some genetic thing with that. My grandma was a teacher, and like probably 7 aunties and uncles on that side of the family. They all taught. So, and that's my role as a financial planner involves a lot of that. So I'm breaking down concepts. So like I mentioned to you, I translate a lot of what you're doing to individuals, translate a lot of the stuff in terms of the different tax rules, tax implications if you do this versus that. So there's a lot of connection there. And so it's been 3 years now that I've been in that role, and it's been over a year that I've been teaching. And I continue to do a lot of courses. So part of holding the CFP, you have to do continuing education. So I'm doing a number of courses, retirement planning, estate planning, with the intention of getting into an MBA at Dalhousie. They have one in financial services, which I can do part-time. So definitely career planning isn't something I want to say to you guys. It's not an event. It's a process. So you should always be looking at that. Not wait until you finish school. You guys are making the first step by being here. And likewise, when you're in your careers, whether it's you start your own company, you always have to keep that top of mind, right? So same thing in terms of finance. It's not something that is an event to say, okay, at tax time, let's look at our finances. It's something that you should be doing throughout.
When I started out in undergrad, my intention was to be an accountant. I luckily had a co-op program at my school, a different school in New York, but you guys have an internship program here, and I highly recommend taking advantage of that because in my situation, I learned very quickly that I didn't actually want to be an accountant. It's one of those things when you first start working or first start thinking about your career, everything seems fine, right? Like you think an accountant, it's like you're playing with numbers, it's fine. It's great for some people, it wasn't for me. But I did enjoy my economics courses. I very much fell in love with the idea of trying to understand the psychology of what drives people, understanding the incentives. And that's ultimately what economics is. Anybody tells you that it's very much tied to finance, it is, but that's because the ultimate incentor is money. So for my last co-op term, I actually was working with a university professor. And through that, I decided I kind of enjoy this. An opportunity came up to go to grad school. I thought, I see no reason to be a grown-up yet, and there's no negatives in me going to get my master's, so I came to York. I had a great opportunity because of the bursaries and TA offers and those kind of research assistant offers. So essentially like a funding your grad school, which again highly recommend. I left York in 2008. Not exactly the best time to enter the workforce. I didn't quite have an idea as to what I wanted to do, but again, I sort of fell butt backwards into an opportunity with the Ontario government. It was actually the first job I applied for after exams at grad school, and got the job. So I was there for a year, and my biggest sort of advice that I can give in terms of a career planning is be open to opportunities and never really say no. Always make yourself sure that you're prepared so when an opportunity does present itself, you can just go and do it. There's no reason, especially early in your career, to sort of turn something down. While in the Ontario government, they were looking for people to work on a project related to the budget. I volunteered my time because, again, I saw no reason not to. It was different than what I was working on at that point in time. And I was involved in a small team of people that actually sort of did the policy for the harmonized sales tax in Ontario. This is clearly probably way before all of your times, but it just essentially changed how sales tax was done in Ontario. So this is a big project there and had a great opportunity working there. And pretty much once that was done and the budget was out, an opportunity came up to go and work for Royal Bank of Canada in their economics department. So at that point, it's 2009. We are at the depths of the recession. I know very little in terms of the actual real world because when you're in academia, you're very much sheltered to what's going on. And I was thrust into a position where my job was to explain what was going on to anybody and everybody. You're dealing with the media, you're dealing with the clients, you're dealing with people of all sorts. And your job is to try and translate the data, the underlying themes of the data, underlying themes of the markets to the broad population. You're trying to take a very complex idea and put it in the simplest possible form so it's understandable. And at that point in time, I didn't quite know myself, which is an odd role to be in where you're considered an expert in a situation when you actually have no real idea. And I can say that now because I'm moved past that point, so there's really nothing they can say about what I was saying in 2009. But so I was at RBC for 5 years, or I guess just under 5 years. And during that time, it's a lot of just gaining exposure, learning everything on your job while you're on the job. In addition to that, I started doing the courses for studying and writing the CFA exam, so Chartered Financial Analyst exam. So I got that designation as well, because really, there's no negatives ever to learning more. Doing continuing education is a great situation. If you want to do added designations or those kind of things, there's no negatives to it other than sacrificing your time. And from my perspective, at that point in time, I didn't have kids. I've got 2 now. I would not be able to give any time to anything. But if you have the time and there's no reason to not continue learning. And again, so working at RBC for the capital markets team there for just under 5 years, it's an opportunity to sort of learn everything. And it's a lot of trial by fire because I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the financial news. The last, say, 6 years have been a little chaotic. Let's stretch it. The last 8 to 10 years have been a little bit chaotic in terms of how the financial markets have been going. And that's just not concentrated to North America, it's globally. So it's been a great opportunity to just learn how everything is interconnected, what's driving markets, what's driving just overall growth story, why are things working out in one area but not in another area, and how can you translate, why do some ideas not translate well across borders or across asset classes and things like that. And then so after my time with RBC, an opportunity presented itself to move from into a buy-side firm, so an actual investment firm. So whereas before I was putting out the research and the ideas and explaining what was going on and just sort of leaving it out there for other people to deal with it, I'm a little more hands-on. So it's a lot of the same work in terms of developing the underlying themes and forecasts. Where's GDP growth going? Where are interest rates going? Where are foreign exchange rates going? And then sort of being able to overlay that and work with the people, work with our portfolio managers and analysts in trying to lay out an actual strategic plan. So it's not that you're sort of flying blind, it's trying to provide some guidance in a situation where there is very little certainty in the world right now, but you're trying to establish, here is how, based on economic theory and tying, it's a very much applied economics. It's taking, here's what the theory says, here's how everything should be playing out. And if it isn't, here are the reasons potentially why that is the case. Everything, the main reason why you're sheltered from what's actually going on is because for you to understand what's happening in the global markets, you need to understand the fundamentals. So going through school, they're hammering home the theories. They're hammering home what seems fairly mundane, the national, if you're economics students, the GDP additive is C plus I plus G plus NX. That ultimately is the crux of everything that we're doing as an actual market economist. is you're tying everything in there to see, okay, what's driving the consumption, what's driving investment, what's driving government spending, what's driving net exports. That's the crux of it. So if someone was trying to explain to me the issues with CDOs in 2000, mortgage CDOs in 2008, or let's say it's 2006 when this is going on and I'm in undergrad, that is a little bit lost on me. Why does this matter in terms of the financial markets? Like the actual coursework teaching the fundamentals of what are financial markets, what drives them, what is the underpinnings of that, how do people develop their forecasts, develop their macroeconomic views. Getting that fundamental is very, very important. So from my perspective, again, I'm in a slightly different field, but it's emphasizing the fact that, as an economist, you need to understand economics.
There was a stream that was geared towards financial planners. So there were tax courses, there were financial planning courses. And in finance, one of the core concepts is time value of money. So that's a big theme in terms of retirement planning, doing cash flow projections for clients. So that was definitely something that crossed over. The tax rules, especially for me as an international student, coming from Jamaica, I knew nothing about Canadian tax, knew nothing about RSPs, everything was foreign to me. So I learned that here. And now I communicate that and explain that to people. So definitely, sometimes students will ask the question or will sort of think, is this important? Do I really need to know this? Is this something that will be used later on, right? There's some stuff that you won't see when you are in the work world. Some things that has changed, has evolved. But the other big thing that you learn while you're here, separate from content, is you learn how to learn and how to learn quickly, because things change very rapidly. You learn how to manage your time. So when you're doing multiple courses, you're working part-time, whatever it is, and you've got competing needs or competing deadlines, you need to figure out, how do I prioritize? Which one do I do first? Or do I start this, kind of have it on hold, and then start the other thing? So that's a skill set that's really important in the fast-paced world that we now live, where things change so rapidly, in terms of on a global scale, and also even when you go to the micro level within firms. So I've been sort of saying to a lot of coworkers that change is the new normal, right? Even within my firm, there's always something new that's being implemented, new changes. So being able to absorb information very quickly, on the go, and analyze it is something that you're sort of developing those skills. The other skill set is also, which you should be keeping top of mind as well, is the soft skills as well. So networking, and that's something that with the different clubs, Economic Students Association, that's separate from the technical skills. Your soft skills are going to be important in many roles. That's now something which, in terms of the way the world is going, most things that didn't require soft skills, those are being automated. Those are being replaced by software, by machines. So it's really a lot of the soft skills that are valued.
I'm still a student. I'm a PhD candidate here at York. I do have one take on how you should be treating school. Because I do see a lot of students treating school as school, treating coursework as coursework. And I do see that people are kind of procrastinating to the last minute, copying each other's stuff, like peeking around during tests. I do see a lot of that. And I don't think that's the correct approach, not to mention, academic integrity. Even if that's perfectly legal, I don't believe that's the correct way of doing it. One story that happened to me is that, I started school, bachelor at U of T 2007, graduated 2011. During that time, I was just pretty much cramming, remembering this, remembering that, got really good grades. But graduating pretty much knowing nothing, because I treat schoolwork as schoolwork. I have to finish this. I have to do this assignment. I find it really annoying. I have to do it. So I pretty much learned nothing from it. But in fourth year, I took on a job And that job is a TA position at a course that I'd done before, which is called investment. And in that course, professor gave me 5 cases to study. And my task was, he gave me the case and some supplementary notes. Supplementary notes are written by the way, by Harvard professors. And he says, give me more insights than this Harvard professor. So that was my task. And it was really difficult, and I was treating cases as if it's work. By the way, it is work. I was getting paid for that. So by the end of 4 months with that type of work, I learned more, in that 4 months than what I learned in 4 years of school. So I was like, so this is how you're supposed to study. Treat every assignment as if it's a work. Someone's paying you to do it. And treat classes, not treat lectures as if, I heard it, I was here, I'll probably get a participation mark. Really think about how would you use those ideas and theories that you heard in class and apply it in real life. One of the problems I do see with economics is that we talk too much about theories but not enough applications. And same thing with econometrics and such, So one of the good ways to do it essentially is to take those and really think about how can you make money from the things you learn. Because it doesn't really have to be money, but how do you create value out of the things you learn? I think that's the key to schooling and to studying, and that will take you very far in life. So when I was doing my MBA, I treat schoolwork as if it's work. Right? So I learned business plan, I learned this, I learned that. I took my knowledge to competition, and I won 2 of them. So that's how being on the top, that's how you accelerate. The example at CFE that I just gave, it's really started in class, right? So it's a professor showing how would you apply this model to Walmart. Why stop there? Why just do Walmart? Some students don't even try it. They don't even go back home and open up the Excel sheet and plug in some numbers. And not only I plug in the numbers, also change numbers. Once you see something interesting in class, you should really rework that thing out. Really hands-on. Get some hands-on experience with that. Because schoolwork is very similar to work, but only when you see the similarity. So I suggest all of you guys train yourself seeing that similarity. So that's how you accelerate.
Everything you study is relevant. What the school wants to teach you is to think in a very dynamic way, because today you're having this job, tomorrow you'll have a completely different job like me. I went from a completely technical, and I can talk about engineering designs and motor vehicle, to operation and compliance audit, to interest rate modeling, and 3, every degree added value to me. And everything you learn, it might not be relevant at this point of time, but in the future you will sit back and think, oh, I studied fluid dynamics, it was doing this, Bernoulli equation says this. So you can translate it. One thing also, it allows you to learn quickly whatever you want to do and progress in whatever environment.